Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fish Tank. On this brand new episode of Fish Tank,
we capture the emissions from these power plants and use the emissions to generate synthetic fuel. So our whole proposition is the thermal power plants can sell the synthetic fuel and use that to subsidize the cost of electricity.
I'm struggling to get what exactly then like your ideal customer base is. Like other than, let's say, cosmetics, then like what else?
No, actually you're wrong.
Or
You're wrong. If you produce your fuel, government will first of all hit you with VAT on the fuel you produce. So by the time you resell the fuel to the producer, the government will already say this is a transaction which needs to be taxed.
In this case, what would you say is your unique value proposition that you would say, okay, I'm doing this and this makes me unique?
I think you should focus on building the device and not on like selling the fuel and all that. That should, if you put it in a power plant, let the power plant people do whatever they want with it.
Your business is registered, right?
not yet. We plan to launch in December.
Okay, then which brings me to my next question. Is it patented?
That's what we are getting to, because, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
So we had help. So help is about, let's say, 25,000. So the three of us pull our resources together, build the machines.
Good use of help, other than drinking Chrome.
Till now, I don't know what you sell. Are you selling energy? Or are you selling synthetic fuels? Or are you selling the tech?
You're very successful. You think all these energy companies will just chill out and welcome on board, you can sell fuel. Then make sure your fuel never gets to any. You'll start fighting wars that you don't want to fight, or you're not ready to fight. If your device blows up in an thermal plant and they lose very expensive generators, you'll be sued to hell.
When I think about solutions that have very Muzungu implications, right? I love them because they are more premium. Because if there is anything I know engineers for, is that they are very excited about building things, and the business side of things is zero. You need a godfather, a sugar daddy. You see, because what you need is seed, right? You need seed, not necessarily like VC funding or anything.
Yeah.
My name is Andy Billy Onyango. I'm a founder at Greenmoove. So, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a morning person. So I prefer doing my work in the morning. So I remember waking up today in the morning, getting ready to do some designs. Lo and behold, there's no electricity. So I thought it was a problem for everyone, like my whole apartment complex. Turns out it was only me. So the solution to that is top up my tokens. So for 100 shillings, I got 3.2 units of electricity. So take that same 100 shillings, go to South Africa, go to Uganda, go to Tanzania. That same 100 shillings won't get you less than 6.5 units of electricity. And that's the problem we're solving at Greenmoove, the high cost of electricity. So how do we solve this? So to break that down, I have to take you back. Let's look at Kenya's energy grid. Kenya's energy grid is a mixture of geothermal, hydropower, solar, wind, and thermal power plants. So let me explain thermal power plants. Thermal power plants are power generating plants that run on fossil fuels. And they account for 10% of Kenya's energy grid. So as I mentioned, they use fossil fuels to generate electricity. Where there are fossil fuels, there must be emissions. So how we solve the problem for high cost of electricity is we capture the emissions from these power plants and use the emissions to generate synthetic fuel. So our whole proposition is the thermal power plants can sell the synthetic fuel and use that to subsidize the cost of electricity. Or there's another method of them substituting the fossil fuels they use with the synthetic fuel. So either way, the costs go down. Yeah, and that's Greenmoove.
Feels like some mad scientist shit, right?
Nah, it's simple chemistry.
Explain to us the chemistry.
So there are 5 types of emissions from power plants. Sulfur oxide, nitrogen oxide, particulate matter, carbon monoxide, and carbon dioxide. So to take you back, thermal plants, to build a thermal plant, you need a lot of capital. It's capital intensive. So most of them usually get their financing from World Bank. So with World Bank financing comes World Bank regulations. And the regulations set by World Bank are that only 2 gases are given priority, sulfur oxide and nitrogen oxide. The reason being is they are the 2 biggest contributor to acid rain, all that. So essentially the rest, carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, are waste gases. They're not given any priority. So our value to these plants is that we are proposing a solution that we can capture the CO2 emissions from your stacks or chimneys and generate synthetic fuel from that. So how we do that is after capturing the CO2.
How do you capture it? Is it like that? They call it chimneys, and then you capture it escaping.
So that depends with the specific type of plant, but about 90% of the plants, they are chimneys, they are stacks. They are called stacks, actually, not chimneys. The stacks have a manhole at the base. So you can capture from the manhole instead of going up top. So you just direct the emissions into our reactor. From our reactor, we mix the CO2 emissions with calcium oxide to form calcium carbonate. Then heat the calcium carbonate to release CO2, capture it. Then the cycle repeats. Then from the captured CO2, we have, actually it's a 3-system reactor. The first reactor, we've captured CO2. In the second reactor, we generate hydrogen through a process called electrolysis. Then combine the 2, you form synthetic fuel.
Okay. This sounds some very advanced kind of thing.
Chemistry.
My first question is why can't the thermal power plants do it themselves?
I guess maybe they've never had the idea. I don't know.
How easy or hard is it to do it?
It's pretty tricky. Because first of all, I think the biggest deal with this, actually, the reason why I think thermal plants haven't done that is to generate synthetic fuel, it's way, way, way costly.
Costly in what sense? What costs a lot?
First of all, it's energy intensive. So in terms of energy, it's really, really intensive. So that brings the costs up. So I think that's why they've never thought of venturing into that route.
Okay. It sounds very impressive and all, but what I don't quite get is when you get the synthetic fuels, right? Your customers for the synthetic fuels are who exactly?
So there's a bunch of customers for the synthetic fuel. So we have the option of venturing to the aviation industry. We have the option of partnering with companies such as Shell, because they also manufacture synthetic fuel, though in a smaller scale. Or synthetic fuel can also be used in cosmetics, pharmaceuticals. So we have a wide range of options for the synthetic fuel.
Okay, so when you say aviation, are you talking about ATK?
It's not that simple. So basically, we see EVs taking over. But then there are such industries such as maritime and aviation, which you really can't, probably you can, but I think the technology hasn't been made yet. You really can't make an electric plane. So the option of decarbonizing such an industry is replacing the fossil fuel. So that's where synthetic fuel comes in. It's an alternative to fossil fuels, jet fuel, basically.
Does synthetic fuel run on cars?
Yeah, it can.
Without any conversion of the engine?
It can with conversion.
That's a problem.
Yeah. From everything you've mentioned, because even if you mentioned your customers being aviation, right? And with aviation, it's not like you're not creating ATK, right? And all like most aviation engines are built similarly around the industry, which is ATK. So if you're not creating ATK, you would need conversion within the aviation industry of those planes to be able to use your fuels. You need conversion for even customers to be able to use your fuels in their cars, right? Similarly, even with like with many things you've mentioned. So like I'm struggling to get what exactly then like your ideal customer base is. Like other than let's say cosmetics, then like what else is the key thing? Because everything I've heard you say so far is we can take this waste gases, create synthetic fuels, and use for cosmetics. That's kind of like the only use case I've gotten so far that I think,
And what happened to your original problem of the cost of fuel?
We mentioned we're generating synthetic fuel from their emissions.
Yeah.
So actually the question you asked, who will sell the synthetic fuel to?
Yeah.
So for us, we just deploy our technology on the plant, then the power plant will decide who they sell to. So from the sale of the synthetic fuel, they can subsidize the cost of electricity.
Okay.
Have you built any of this device?
Yeah, we're on the 5th iteration of our prototype.
How small or big is it?
Currently, it's a small reactor because that's what you're working with at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've done tests at a thermal plant, or you have piloted on a thermal plant?
We've not yet piloted, but we've done tests.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that go?
So to put into context, the power plant we went to for Q1 of 2023, one diesel engine had an emission of 464,200 kilograms of CO2. So our machine was able to capture 40% of that.
Okay. You generated fuel?
Yeah. No, not the fuel. We just captured it first. Then now we'll move into the fuel, one step at a time.
Okay. And you have inputs to this reactor, which was calcium
oxide.
And then there's something else that you're adding to create the fuel.
Hydrogen.
Okay. So if you need hydrogen to run your reactor.
Yeah.
This is some expensive thing to run.
It is.
Did you purchase the hydrogen locally?
No. It's simple. Okay, let me explain to you how electrolysis happens.
You don't need to go into electrolysis.
Yeah. I'm looking at the inputs to your reactor.
Yeah.
Is it something you just place there and it produces output on the other side? Or do I need to say, okay, I need to introduce other chemicals so that it reacts with the exhaust?
It's autonomous. Everything happens on its own. Even the regeneration of the calcium oxide happens on its own.
So you don't have chemical inputs to the reactor?
No.
Okay, like one thing I'm struggling with is this. When you started your pitch, you mentioned that the primary goal was to make electricity power cheaper.
Yeah.
Now we've gotten to a point where you're not actually creating power. Your primary goal is to create synthetic fuels and hopefully use that to subsidize the status quo.
Yes.
But actually, his work is to sell this device. So the power plant decides what to do with the fuel.
Yeah, and he's saying hopefully that they would use it to subsidize.
Do you know how much of electricity costs his tax?
Yeah.
I was about getting there.
There's also,
I think even for geothermal, it's extremely cheap to produce it. The transmission is very expensive and the tax on it is insane. So solving the problem of cost can easily be solved by changing a legislation to reduce the tax on electricity other than producing the synthetic fuel. And I'm not sure how, even if the power plants can reuse the synthetic fuel, how much of a margin they can change on the cost of production.
Yeah, and I have one thing also to add to that. Like, he's looking at it from the back end. Now, let's look at it from the front end. From everything you've mentioned so far, it's giving an indication that it's a very expensive system.
Yeah.
Right? And like and if you're saying you want to create power at the end of the day, by the time you had the tax rates that currently exist on power generating systems right now by the government, and you add it to whatever you create, does that create a benefit? Or are we just back to status quo, even more expensive?
More expensive.
And I don't know how to justify that. I think you probably know better.
I think from the market research we conducted from the power plants, the common theme was the government wants the power plants to reduce the cost of electricity. But yet again, the same government is increasing the taxes on the fuels they use. So the obvious option will be stop using the fuels being taxed heavily.
No, actually, you're wrong.
Or
you're wrong. If you produce your fuel, government will first of all hit you with VAT on the fuel you produce. So by the time you resell the fuel to the producer, the government will already say this is a transaction which needs to be taxed. So if you're an independent company providing this service and selling this refuel back, you'll notice that the government will catch you on that resale. So the only thing is if these companies buy your device and implement it, and so they consider this part of the regeneration process, as you call it. So you can only, at best, build these devices and sell them to the power plants.
Yeah. So I think on that is we are exploring options of... so there's two options. The power plant can purchase our tech, or we can deploy it freely at the site. But then that will mean we'll have to, us as a company, find another method to subsidize.
Please don't do that.
How much how much is the tech that you're supplying to the...
Currently, as I mentioned, it's a 3-step reactor. Capture, hydrogen, mix. So far we are working on the capture part. So the capture tech is estimated to cost about $6,000 to $7,000.
Okay, that's cheaper.
But the
for
cost
a plant.
will continue coming down as we continue to refine our process.
You fabricate the whole device yourselves?
Yeah, in my apartment.
Nice.
Telling you,
do you have some photos?
Yeah.
Send for us?
Yeah.
Maybe you can send it later.
I can.
I was telling
So you're making what in your apartment?
Mad scientist thing happening in the kitchen.
I think when we started, we had... when everyone starts, when you have an idea...
You started up.
You always start with, I need funding. Funding is the barrier to bringing my idea to life.
Yes.
So was our case, but then we realized the idea has to be pushed one way or another. We don't have funding, we have to get the money from somewhere. We need to get a place to test our equipment. Hydrogen is explosive, so we need to find somewhere.
I was going to ask that, like, how are you doing this?
Like safety concerns, things like that. And I had a question around that. Right now, on carbon capture, you have a lot of like big companies focused on carbon capture. In fact, the entire F1 ecosystem is actually built to the 2026 regulation is built around how best to use sustainable fuels and carbon capture. Microsoft, right, has launched a lot of initiatives, even around this, for carbon capture into synthetic fuels and driving that ecosystem. Now, in this case, what would you say is your unique value proposition that you would say, okay, I'm doing this and this makes me unique, and these other big giants that have invested the last 10 years perfecting this, I end up either cheaper than them or better than them. Like, what exactly is your own unique value proposition?
Costs.
You're cheaper than...
So, as I mentioned, currently, we are manufacturing the synthetic fuel just like everyone else. CO2, hydrogen. Hydrogen is the most expensive, the electrolysis part is the most expensive part. But for us, we're exploring another option of, instead of generating hydrogen, why not just generate the synthetic fuel directly? So we do that. Should I mention that? Okay. We pass electricity through the CO2, captured CO2, in the presence of a molecular catalyst. So with that, we estimate our cost of production of the synthetic fuel will be down by 50%. 50% less than any other player in the game right now. So
when you say 50% less than any other player in the game, you're saying the other players in the game cost how much?
A gallon of synthetic fuel goes for $3 to $7. So our plan is to bring the cost down to less than $1.50.
Okay, let's do the numbers together. Just for the top of my head, you said getting this machine, right, will cost, let's call it $6,000, right, on the low end.
Yeah.
Great. And with the $6,000, you said how much synthetic fuel from the power plants that you've done so far can you generate with that machine?
We can generate about 200 liters of synthetic fuel.
Yeah, 200 liters per day, per month, per year.
In a month.
In a month.
Yeah.
Good. So in a year, let's call it what, 2,500.
Yeah.
Great. So you make 2,500 liters of synthetic fuel
Yeah.
from this machine, and then you're selling it at how much?
The synthetic fuel.
Yes.
So we have not really generated synthetic fuel yet, but we estimate to sell our synthetic fuel at $3, just the current market price.
Okay, so current market price is $3.
Yeah.
And to produce that $3, like everything that goes into, packaging, production, like how much do you estimate as the cost?
That's the cost of production. To produce a gallon of synthetic fuel is $3.
To produce a gallon is $3.
A gallon of synthetic fuel is
And how
$3.
much do they sell synthetic fuel for?
For a liter, it goes for about $8, $7 to $8. It's not a fixed. It depends on which method you used. So some are lower, some are higher.
So it's $3 to produce, $8 to sell.
Yeah.
So you're making $5 on each, right?
Yeah,
so 5 times. So you're talking about $12,500 on a machine of 6,000, like ignoring all other running costs.
Yes.
They're doing it in their apartment as well.
And you're doing it in your apartment, okay?
Yes.
Interesting.
What I'm interested in, can this be repurposed for a car?
It can. The internal combustion engine.
Because that's why I think there's a market. If I can become Doctor Strange and I put this in my car and it captures the exhaust and I have this in my trunk, and as I drive around, I generate some fuel.
But for $6,000?
No, I'm saying I have a different version because I think what you described is also big. Too big to fit into a car. So I'm thinking if the same technology can be put into a miniature device and purposed for a car.
Actually, that's the vision we have. We plan to make these big machines, then with time make them modular and much smaller. So they can be fitted into virtually any moving, be it a ferry, be it a car.
I think you should focus on building the device and not on like selling the fuel and all that. That should, if you put it in a power plant, let the power plant people do whatever they want with it. If you sell it to somebody who has a version for a car, so that, because when you get to start selling fuel, generating it, running it, and all that, I think you're going to get into a lot of mess. And second, your technology is not perfected.
Yeah.
You need to spend so much time and sometimes this device has to go through safety checks. It has to be verified by the government. You can sell it. You realize that journey is so long.
Yeah.
And very few people create hardware in Kenya and in Africa. And if you have to productionize that process of generating the machine, let's say today you have 10 orders. Can you produce 10 of them?
Depends on the time frame.
I need it in a month. You've wowed me with this idea.
Yeah, we're impressed.
In a month, if you work for 16 hours a day, we probably can.
Oh, you have some slaves.
How big is your team?
Actually, we are a team of 3. I'm the lead engineer. I design and build the machines. The rest, they help me. There are a lot of regulations in place.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So they deal with the regulations. I deal with the machines.
What's your background? Just out of curiosity, what did you?
I'm a biomedical engineer from the University of Nairobi.
Biomedical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. And your business is registered, right?
Not yet. We plan to launch in December.
Okay. Then, which brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
This product you're creating, is it innovative? Is it new? Or are there very similar products in the market?
Actually, there's no synthetic fuel producer through carbon capture in the global south. So we'll probably be the first.
So the technology is novel.
Yeah.
Is it patented?
That's what we are getting to, because, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
We have no one funding us at the moment. So it's all us.
Okay.
So you have to weigh out your options. Build the machines or patent it.
The part I'm struggling to understand is this. You have a technology that's novel, you came up with.
Yeah.
You don't have a registered company. It's not patented. And you're doing tests.
Yeah.
Now, those people you're doing tests with work with very big energy companies.
Yeah.
Right? And so they buy it from you, to just play with, sell to the energy company. The energy company replicates it easily, mass produces, how are you protecting your IP?
Yes.
As I said, it's a work in progress. We are
But at least you need to have a
pending
plan.
patents. In short, let me just say that
But you need
our
to have a
patents are
plan.
patenting.
You need to have a plan.
Or you need a lawyer as a co-founder,
Like,
to help you with all those legal things.
I'm not saying you need to have it ready.
Yeah.
I'm saying at least when asked, you need to have a plan.
Yeah.
Because, Facebook is the entire history of Facebook is what it is today, right? Because they didn't close that loophole. If you have something that can be replicated
Yeah.
and it's novel,
Yeah.
and before you even start doing tests, you need to sort of protect it. Otherwise, a big player comes, steals the idea, even patents it and bans you from creating it, and you're left out. And this is a very interesting industry that needs to be protected.
You have another route to take. Yeah. You can go patent this technology. And patent is usually just description. If you've ever read any of them, you don't have to actually build anything. Then you can keep on building and fine-tuning your model. Then you go find a partner, a company that has production capabilities, and say, okay, we want to spend our time innovating. Okay, we have this patent, it's registered. We want you to manufacture these things, sell them, or manufacture them and get into contract with energy companies, aviation, or whoever else. So that you spend most of your time in the innovation. That takes away that stress of whether it will be stolen, whether someone will knock you off. And those companies will come in with lawyers, they'll come in with engineers. I don't know if Kenya we have manufacturers who do that. But anyone who deals with some hardware fabrication might be a good partner.
I think on that, I'll have to explain my side of the story.
Okay.
So I recently graduated uni in September. We started working on the project about in, I think, late May. We started working. Okay, it was a project we started working on way back, but May we finally got serious about working on this. So we have no founders, we have no one. It's just me, my two other co-founders, all students. So a question will be, where do we get the money to build these machines? So we had help. So help is about, let's say, 25,000. So the three of us pull our resources together, build the machines.
Good use of help, other than drinking Chrome.
Build the machines. But then the iteration I've mentioned we're on the 5th iteration. So basically right now there are 12 patents we have to work on right now. The method we are using, the materials we're using, and all that. So you mentioned patenting.
Yeah.
How much is it to patent?
I think it's 50,000 Kenya shillings last time I
So
checked.
do 50 times 9. 50K times 9.
Yeah, that's like 450K.
So the question will be,
Yeah.
you see?
I understand that point.
Yeah.
Are you a business right now? No.
No.
Right? Because a business is registered and they figure a way of securing their assets.
Yeah.
Right? Your asset right now, I know people argue about IP, registering IP and building something. In Kenya, we don't do very well in building and shipping. And you'll realize anyone who has tried to do local manufacturing has gone into hurdles.
Yeah.
So that IP can give you some leverage, right? To give you options, because at the end of the day, you want this to get into the market somehow.
Yeah.
If you don't have the money, you partner with somebody who has the money. That's why if you have a partner who probably, let's say an energy generation company, a thermal, like we will want to deploy this with you, but in exchange of that, we want to partner this under our name. You'll use it for free for X number of years. So you have agreements so that you focus on building. So if you don't have the money and you can't raise it, you go into partnerships.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Also, don't discount, like the power of the IP, don't discount it. And I'll give you an example. Do you know, there's a country called Tuvalu,
Yeah.
right? You know how Kenya is KE,
Yeah.
Nigeria is NG, so theirs is TV.
Yeah.
It's a very small island that, like, while walking on the street, you are looking both sides at the sea, right? But significant portion of the revenue comes from the registered TV. So everybody that has a domain that ends with TV is paying them a lot of money. Twitch is paying them a lot of money, right? And do they? If you ask to value, what do you want to do with the domain? They don't know, right? But like, that is accounting for a significant proportion of the entire GDP. Now, in this sense, when you want to build products that are novel and innovative, it's good to, the grand plan is to see to the end. But if you have something truly novel, the earlier you register, right, the better, because even you may end up not building it and even stop. And 5 years' time, somebody wants to build something similar and he can't even register it. And now they have to pay you millions of dollars just to go ahead.
You register the patent, sell it to an energy company, and go have drinks in Diani and look for the next idea.
And that's the plan. Because when I look at the market assessment, you are in a market that is growing.
Yeah.
It's the trend of the next decade. Yeah. You're also in a market that is big. Anything energy is big, right?
Yeah.
But then I look at the customers. Till now, I don't know what you sell. Are you selling energy? Or are you selling synthetic fuels? Or are you selling the tech to produce? I still don't know, and I've listened to you speak, and that needs to be clear. So who are your customers? Because depending on what your product is, right, then you are either B2C or B2B, right?
It should be B2B.
Yeah.
I think
It's a B2B
Yeah.
model.
So you're not. So in this case, you're not selling synthetic fuels because
Selling the tech.
that sounds very B2C.
Yeah, and you'll realize once you start selling that synthetic fuel, if you're very successful, you think all these energy companies will just chill out and like, welcome on board, you can sell fuel. Then make sure your fuel never gets to any. You'll start fighting wars that you don't want to fight or you're not ready to fight. That, to me, I would say I would give myself 5 years of a phase. Let's say in my 5th year, I want to sell synthetic fuel.
Do you have 5 years?
Yeah, that's our plan. We've broken down our we have steps. So our first step is to capture. So basically we'll capture the CO2. Now we have CO2. Then what to do with the CO2? We can sell the CO2. Basically.
And actually,
from the sale of CO2 we can maybe
I've even
That's B2C.
Actually, I've even thought about forget this synthetic fuel thing.
Yeah.
I think is it not hospitals? Which industry that usually requires CO2? The
beverage, food grade, CO2.
Just capture the CO2 and sell it to those people in those massive cylinders. And then the sale from that can fund your next stage of, is it electrolysis?
Yeah, the synthetic fuel.
Yeah, just take that one part and perfect it and sell CO2. Capacity was a very big company that was selling CO2 to beverage and all these manufacturers. Get a contract with EABL that you can sell them cheap CO2. And there's your investment.
Yeah,
that's the plan.
For agriculture, 1 acre fund will buy your CO2, right?
Yeah.
And they have links to all farmers in Kenya.
Yeah, and forget this crap about synthetic fuel, right? That's something you'll do in your 10th year.
Yeah.
Right now, you have a simple process that works and you've proved I can capture exhaust, convert it into CO2. Figure out how do I bottle or store that CO2 in a safety thing. Go to Cabacid, go to EABL, go to drinks manufacturer, show them, and sell it. Yeah. You use that money to fund your
next idea.
Your Dexter's lab.
Dexter's lab.
Yeah, and for me, like I said, when I do the market assessment, you're in a very good market.
Yeah.
Right. But when you sell this idea, to many people, it sounds very B2C. Right? Like you started with energy, you talked about synthetic fuels, you talked about, but the product is actually the machine you're creating.
Yeah.
Right? And that's very B2B. So, and you need to be clear what your value proposition is. Yeah. Right? So if your value proposition is this, focus on it and understand, okay, what do energy companies want? Right? For many of them, it's strategic. Right? Like if you go and meet Shell Foundation and they're just looking for, they have funds where they're looking for places to just invest to meet their ESG quotas, for example, right? And, being strategic from a B2B end will involve you incorporating all this into your strategic plan, Right?
And I think he's actually supposed to get out of that market for the devices, because before a company puts up their device, it has to be certified by KEBS and IPRA and all that. And before your machine passes those regulations, you might be even 3 years down the line. So, and if your device blows up in an thermal plant and they lose very expensive generators, you'll be sued to hell. So you'd rather have that machine, even if it's not well perfected, in your own little place, and then whatever you produce is CO2. So you're selling CO2. And when KEBS will come in, if you start if you have to sell it to big companies, some of your process have to be vetted, and they'll be less forgiving if you've not perfected your machine, but you're producing CO2 and you have all safety captures. But if you're selling the actual machine, the amount of regulation that you need to pass so that machine is certified. I'll just go to Kitengela, rent some piece of land, build my thing there, I produce CO2, I find a way of selling it in industrial area. That's it.
Yeah, and I think you also need to take a very practical approach on costing, in the sense that, so hardware is different from software, right?
Yeah.
With software, you have a very huge upfront cost.
Yeah.
And as you continue in the process,
hopefully make money.
It comes down. The thing about hardware is sometimes even the cost of certifications and safety protocols and all this is even far more expensive than what you're producing in itself. Right now, you don't have those costs. Right? There's also a second part, which is right now you're probably not paying yourself.
Definitely.
And this is a very niche industry. Right now, you start employing the people that can actually work in those industries to the standards that you want to create,
Expensive.
and had all this certification cost, and then you add scaling cost, right? Because scaling is not easy when you want to set up a plant to scale, a plant of whatever size. You have the cost profile right now can then sort of look very steep before you then have gradual decline over time. And for me, it's you need to put that into your business perspective, because once you do that, then you would not be talking about cost savings, because your cost is going to balloon. And when you start talking about cost savings, and people who are versed in this industry hear you talk, they know the cost is going to balloon. They don't see any benefit. So you need to tailor your value proposition, right, in a way that it accounts for these things, right, and it's the benefits from a B2B end. It's clear. It doesn't necessarily have to be about cost savings.
Yeah. Is there any software component to the tech that you're building?
Yeah, you have to code because you are essentially feeding gases from the power plant. So you need to account for the concentration of the CO2 over there, the other gases, the flow rate. There's a bunch of metrics you have to factor in. So with that, you need code.
Okay.
Yeah.
What coding language are you using?
I don't do the code. My other co-founders do the code. So that's me. I just build the machines. They do the coding.
Which means there's some electronic components to the machine.
Yeah.
Do you fabricate those? Do you import them?
We buy our components from, let me give them a shout out, Pixel Electric.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're common electronic components.
As I mentioned also, so let me give into context. You can actually buy a machine to capture, components to capture the CO2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So there's a reactor called a fluidized bed reactor. If you go to these online sites, you'll get the price range is between $5,000 to $10,000, depending on the capacity you want. Maybe you want 5 liters to 50 liters. So that's the price range. But then if you know how the machine works, you can make your own. Maybe it won't reach the same efficiency, the 99% efficiency, but you can work towards that. So that's what we've been doing. So these are the machines we need. How does it work? Let's build our own version of that.
Gotcha.
So you're just rebuilding something that already exists.
Nah, the components exist. The machine itself doesn't.
So, but you said you can just go online and buy a carbon capture machine.
The components you need. As I mentioned, the fluidized bed reactor, that's just one of the components you'll need.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So on that, so far, what it sounds to me is your machine is a contraption of different parts that you sourced.
Yeah.
Are you creating anything unique? Like, is there any part that you created that acts as a moat? Because if it's a contraption of different parts, anyone can, bring those parts together and, skip a lot of steps in the journey. So in that sense, are you creating any of the hardware components yourself that gives you sort of like a moat on innovation? Because even if you're registering your IP, you don't register a patent on a contraption of parts. Like you need something unique.
You mentioned
that you
the
created.
IP is the process of.
You don't. You don't get an IP for that.
To answer your question, there are components, yes, but within the components, there are things that we have to build that are novel. For example, there are membranes. There are membranes that the gases have to pass through, get filtered and all that.
And you
have to fabricate that. You have to do research on that.
And there's a special formula or way of building that membrane.
Exactly.
Okay, so that becomes your novelty in this whole contraption.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Wow, what a good chemistry lesson. It's been a minute.
So you're doing carbon capture, and you said you're currently at the rate of 40%.
Yeah.
Do you see the machine getting better, and like what's the threshold you're aiming at?
Our aim is to hit 95% capture efficiency.
Wow.
But currently we're at 40.
What's the best carbon capture efficiency in the market right now?
The best efficiency is when you use membranes to capture the CO2. So that's 99% capture.
From similar components, similar like competitors who are doing carbon capture, what's their own like carbon capture rate?
90% efficiency.
90%.
Yeah.
And you're currently so there's room for improvement.
Yeah.
So is there no one doing this in Kenya right now?
They're doing. Okay, it's a complicated process because ours is point source emissions. It's a stack. Okay. It's a chimney. Mm-hmm. But the other companies who do direct air capture.
Okay,
it's basically almost the same technology, but
direct air, like you just put it outside.
Yeah.
And it captures. Yeah, I think I might need this in my Nyamachoma place. Where
I think you guys have probably heard of a company called Octavia Carbon.
Yeah.
Octavia Carbon.
Yeah.
Or Climeworks, if you deal with global
so then
markets.
They use the...
Yeah, they capture CO2 directly from the atmosphere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I find that very interesting.
How viable is this?
It's really viable. I think they raised a lot, so it's really viable.
I think like this initially needs to be funded by like say Shell Foundation.
Yeah.
You need to get into an accelerator.
Not really. You mentioned Microsoft. Microsoft is one of the biggest purchasers of carbon credits. So that's basically how the direct air capture farms generate revenue. So let's say they bought $2 million worth of credits. So they can put that into building the machines, blah, 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 all that. So it's...
So you don't want to join an accelerator like, say...
For hardware.
Yeah.
There's an accelerator for hardware.
So this is the thing about like the part that you're saying, right? When I look at your product, I see multiple revenue sources.
Yeah.
Right? So you can make money from the synthetic fuels.
The
carbon credits.
You can make money from the carbon credits and many things. But the part here is for like the amount of money you would need. Right. And also the amount of expertise you would need along the line. Yeah. Right. Either from a regulatory standpoint or from a best in class standpoint. Those kind of knowledge is better gained from joining an accelerator. Places like the Shell Foundation, I'm sure Microsoft has a similar foundation. And they actually do hardware, especially in the climate space.
Yeah.
They do a lot of hardware in the climate space. Right. And well, without that, I'm struggling to see what the path to growth is.
Yeah.
Like, how do you want to grow? Like, if you don't want to join an accelerator.
Yeah, what's your
like?
Nah, you're putting that on me. I didn't say I don't want to join an accelerator. I'm very willing to join an accelerator.
Oh, you want to? Okay.
I really want to. So
if this might be, I have a friend who has a PhD in environmental science and has been working on the carbon markets for quite a while. He might be a useful person connection to you to guide you into what you need to do or how you need to set up so that you can benefit from the carbon capture market.
And like university can't help you being an alumni, no?
Help me in what sense? Expertise.
Yeah, or get new connections or network.
They already gave him the knowledge.
I guess there are a bunch of innovation challenges here and there around the school. Other than that, there are lecturers you can consult with. But as I mentioned, IP. We've not patented our stuff yet, so there's that risk.
Okay, there's that risk, which also means there's a risk that you've not checked that if someone has patented what you're currently doing.
Oh yeah, by the way, you can go there and find somebody whom has won the race while you're still building.
Yeah.
Which sometimes happens.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily won the race. It's possible the person failed and stopped, but is registered.
Yeah.
Right, and that's interesting. I think like it sounds like a very interesting idea.
It does.
And for me, it's when I think about solutions that have very Muzungu implications, right? Like I love them because they are more premium. There is a guy, Victor Asemota. He has this saying that the things that rich people or the West used 10 years ago, like the things they use, it will come to us in 10 years. Right? So eventually, like things around climate and carbon, even though it's not so big in Africa, in 10 years time, it's going to be very big. Right? Exactly. And being, creating solutions that capitalize on that is a way to build generational wealth.
Amen.
So, yeah.
Cool. Do you have what are your needs at the moment?
As I mentioned, we plan to, should I call it a pilot, on one power plant. So to do that, we need to, actually this is the one machine we really need because currently I can't do that in my apartment. I can't fabricate that. If you get that, I think our capture efficiency will shoot from 40 to about 70 or 75%. And that's the standard that was set by the power plants. Get your machines to this efficiency, then we'll talk.
What do you need to fabricate that?
Money.
There used to be Fab Lab. I don't know whether they're still there. Fab Lab was a hub for hardware enthusiasts, and they had CNC machines, they had 3D printers, and all that gadgetry for doing that. And you'll come in, register, and you're free to use all those.
Is it free?
Yeah, the last time I checked, because it was funded by some of those foundations, they moved to industrial areas. It's been a while since I checked them, but you might want to check Fab Lab.
Fab Lab, okay.
Yeah, if they still exist, they'll be a perfect home, because you can now, all those machines you need to fabricate the parts, they have them in their setup.
You've mentioned 3D printing. For the 3D printing, we use Microsoft ADC. They have 3D printers.
Okay.
So we do the 3D printing over there.
Okay.
But then now because we're dealing with gases, some are toxic, some explosive. So for that, we do with Kirdi. Okay. But then, Kirdi, there's a kitu kidogo needed.
So that's Microsoft ADC, it's free?
Yeah, so long as you explain to them why, what, go.
My father used to work at Kirdi.
He has connections, clearly.
But it's a government institution, so there are some processes you go there. I would set this up I'll find someone in industrial area who handles gases and ask them to, because they already have all those safety equipments to do it. They might charge you. That's why I still think you need a partner.
You definitely need a partner.
Yeah.
You definitely, because the road ahead is going to be filled with a lot of
expenses.
Expenses, bumps ahead, regulatory wise. That you need a partner who can be almost like a godfather. You build what you need to build. Okay, you need the regulation. I'll do it. You. Right. You need money for this. Okay, we'll try to get it. While you focus on building because if there's anything I know engineers for, is that they are very excited about building things, and the business side of things is zero. And I'll give an example of what I mean. Right now, there are three things that you can only choose two from. You either build things to aim to be the lowest cost in the market, or you build things to be, the highest quality in the market, or you build things to be the one that can sell the most volumes, right? In the market, like in terms of range of products and all. And right now, you are focused on cost and quality, right? You want to increase the rate of carbon capture, right? And also ensure that the cost is competitive, which means you will not sell many things. And it's fine. Like, you don't need to... The person selling generators in Kenya does not need to sell to everybody in Kenya.
Yeah.
But you need to accept that you will not sell a lot. But if you focus on those two things, then your margins will be very high. And if your margins are high and you add it to your cost profile, then it gives you a different sense of what pricing point you should be doing your competitive analysis with.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's a challenge I see down the road.
Another route you might want to go. I know EABL started the innovation lab, but it was more focused on
alcohol.
On the alcohol bit. But since it's an innovation lab, you go like, I don't sell alcohol, but I want to figure out how to get you CO2.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you go read their annual reports, they have something to do with carbon reduction and all that. And I'm sure they'll have all the safety equipments because they bottle beverages there. They might be a partner. And also BAT also were trying to come up with how do they get innovative and all that kind of thing. So you might go and sell it to them. And to me, I feel like there are natural homes where everything you need is in-house. Mm-hmm. So the only thing you discuss is what share, what's the split, and what leverage you have.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I find it very intriguing that you guys have your own refinery.
You're not Nigeria.
Dangote just had his refinery set up.
Yeah, it took us so long. But, because I see, as a Nigerian, I see, the value this can create. If you are familiar with issues around gas flaring.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very big problem in Africa in general. And converting, your solution for a lot of this in terms of carbon capture kind of helps, solve a lot of problems on the targets created by the Western world, UN, OPEC, in helping them just meet. In fact, many of them would actually pay you to make money, just so that they can meet their targets. And it's very interesting.
Amazing. Do you have any questions for us or any?
Yeah, I have a lot.
Okay.
Shoot away.
So from my pitch, if you are an investor, what type of expertise will you need to add to this team? I mentioned I'm an engineer. I build the machines. We have not yet quite figured out the business side of it. We're in the process of, but we'll get there.
Lawyer.
Actually, before we even need a lawyer, I think you need I'm trying to figure out there's a name. Let me call him market engineer.
Yeah.
An engineer.
Market engineer.
Probably not the best word, but an engineer who can ship things to the... It's sort of like the way you have a product manager who will take the software and...
To the user?
Yeah, to the user. Because I feel you are in that innovative building, figuring out all those things. And you're not looking at what does the market need.
How do you currently do it?
Yeah.
Because you said you already...
How do I do what?
Go to the plants. You said you're already in one or two, or?
I just get the school to write me, Andy Billy Onyango is conducting research on this. Please allow him to do this. Then I present it to the plant.
And they?
Sometimes they agree, sometimes unaambiwa not today. So at times it works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. We've approached 8 power plants. Out of the 8, we got 2. So that shows how...
That's not too bad, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you keep well, the ones that ignored you will now get you back.
Yeah, and what came to my head is when you look at things around law.
Yeah.
You could meet a friend who is a lawyer, pay him 50,000 shillings, and he'll get many of those things done for you. Right? Right. You don't need to go to a big law firm.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah.
One thing I've come to realize around startups is you need... Right now, you guys are very techie engineers, whatever. You need someone with exactly not you. Right? And can wear multiple hats.
Yeah.
Think of it as kind of like a consultant, right?
Hi, Femi.
No, like not a full consultant. I'm saying like
McKinsey.
not McKinsey or KPMG. No, I'm saying you need someone who is good with. The person can do, for example, your modeling, right? To say, okay, this is our budget. And how we see things cost and everything ballooning over time, and how to sort of plan and prepare for things.
Are you offering your time?
You need someone who can help you with marketing, because you're good, but like you even find it difficult selling me, right? Like, but you need someone that can take this entire complex idea
and just
sell it simply, and is your mouthpiece, right? And that person can deliver your value proposition, help you fine tune your value proposition, your marketing, your modeling, the finance end of things, work on partnerships for you. Right. Yeah. While you are focusing on all this, the person is, talking to different accelerators,
and you give him
all those things.
Give him 10% of the company.
Yeah. And you give him, clear KPIs. And the person is figuring out all these things while you're focused on building. Because you can easily become distracted.
Okay. So another question will be, I mentioned we are planning to launch in December. So for the launch, it means next year will be a rigorous year for testing the machines. We are currently at 40% efficiency. We need a certain component. We need to make a certain component, in short. To make that, we need money. Is it really the right stage to, let me call it, raise?
From a business perspective, no. You've not even proved that your machine works enough to get to the market. If you are to approach a VC, needs something that has been proven. You've sold it to one or two people. Then they want their money now to accelerate the manufacture and sell. Right? You're still at the proof of concept, if I may put it. So you need maybe angel investors, and not just angels. An angel who understands that
specific domain,
that very specific energy. And if they're willing not to take shares, they're great. If they're willing to give you money so that some arrangements can be had later on, pending based on the success of that outcome for the tests, that would be great. That's why a partner who both gives you money and allows you to who understands this test will take a year. Someone who understands this test will take blah 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 is the best person for you. They'll give you both the money and those additional and they're also patient because they understand that industry.
You need a godfather, a sugar daddy. You see, because what you need is seed. Right? You need seed, not necessarily like VC funding or anything. And getting those seed, it could come in the form of, you could either do CVC, right? Or you do angel. And doing CVC could mean, like we've mentioned accelerator programs, right? You join and then they provide you, with they all understand it takes time. They provide you with the seed, right? And they even help you along the way, right? Or you go to a CVC, which is like a company that has maybe like a VC arm, right? And then they provide you with the resources, and their own goal is, you see the way Microsoft sponsored OpenAI, which is like, do what you need to do. If you end up hacking this thing, right? I get first priority, right? Like, and they probably don't have shares because it's a non-profit. You get what I mean? Like, so you need something. You need to figure out where. That's why I said you need someone that can figure out where the partnerships and value proposition lie.
Have you tried any grants? Because it sounds like you could easily get, not easily.
They're not even registered.
As soon as he's registered. I think you could get some grant funding to kind of just push you through this next phase. Like, Yeah,
and the earlier you register, the better, because
true.
You don't want to go for a grant funding and say, oh, by the way, we just registered yesterday.
It'll seem like
our company is 2 days old. We need your money.
Anyway, any other questions?
None.
Well, really good.
It was great.
You know your stuff. I mean, I've not done chemistry in a very long time, so it's like, wow.
I'll go and just buy some chemistry sets.
Yeah. And please don't blow up yourself in your apartment doing this. Yeah, just keep safe. Keep safe. Keep safe.
Blow up your girlfriend's apartment. Set it up in her house.
Better steal your ex.
So as I mentioned, Greenmove Limited is focused on solving a problem, and the problem you're looking to solve is the cost of electricity. So how we do that is by utilizing a waste gas from the power plants and generating a byproduct from that, which is synthetic fuel, basically promoting circular economics. But our first step is first to capture the carbon. To capture the carbon, we need to build the machines. Our machines currently operate at 40% efficiency. We need to increase the efficiency to 75%. Currently, we are looking to raise 400,000 to build the machines, and I'm sure by mid-2025 we'll have our machines up and running. Thank you.
400,000.
You can reach out to us at our email at greenmoveke@gmail.com, or you can hit up our numbers, which will be displayed on the screen later on.